All right. Good evening and welcome to Pittsburgh Sports Tonight. It's John Phillips here. We are on a Monday evening. We're going to let a few people hopefully straggle on in, and we'll get the show going here in just a few seconds. Hope you had a nice Monday. Weather was awful. It was a pretty bad day out there for sure. Got a chance to get out a few times, but I think like a lot of people just tried to stay inside and keep warm as the wind was whipping and, a little snow early in the morning time. But we're going to talk about the Steelers pretty much today. We will probably touch upon a little bit about Pitt and Penn State's bowl games, Pitt losing, Penn State winning. I don't know if we'll necessarily talk Penguins, but I want to dedicate the majority of the hour to the Steelers as, obviously yesterday's loss. And I watched maybe a handful of plays in the first quarter before I had to make my way back over to Dayton, Ohio and back, taking my sister-in-law home. So I was able to listen to the majority of the game on the radio heading west. And obviously, got a little chance to catch some highlights here and there. I did not watch the full game back in review, just didn't have any time working today. But kept enough notes and, obviously, listening to the game, you get a good sense of what exactly happened yesterday. And it was just another classic example of Mike Tomlin in scenarios where his team goes on the road against these horrific opponents and he just lays an egg, and he does it at home too. This is now the fifth time since 2020 that the Steelers have lost a game to a sub 500 team that has at least 8 more losses than they do wins. It ties an NFL record, actually. Somebody had that this morning or said this afternoon on X. I think I might have reposted that. In 2023, it happened twice. They lost to the Patriots and they lost to Arizona, both of those games at home. Both of those teams were horrible. And the Steelers laid a dud. I think those were actually in back-to-back weeks, if memory serves me correct, just a few seasons ago. So Mike Tomlin, an underprepared, call it what you will. They did not have DK Metcalf. That obviously hurt them tremendously, but still a 3-win Cleveland Browns team. You would think you could come up or devise a plan of some kind that would really get some of the components of your offense that were effective for you the last 3 weeks, primarily Kenny Gainwell and Jaylen Warren. You would think that you would have some sort of game plan together for all of that, but it didn't look like that was the case. Just by looking at the results. And offensively, we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. I do want to get into Aaron Rodgers. And, a lot of people, obviously, yesterday were very upset. I cut a Steel City short and put that out on social media. And, look, for as much as people want to give Mike Tomlin credit, and they rightfully should, right? Never had a losing season, and he won a Super Bowl, and all the whatever they want to say, 200 wins, right? 10th all time. All of these things are valid. But Mike Tomlin deserves plenty of the vitriol when this team fails. And I did do a short today and said, hey, look, not all of this is on Tomlin, right? And I'm going to get into that here a little bit. I did mention the Kyle Duggar misread on the touchdown pass in the first quarter. My goodness. Boy, was that awful. But, the bottom line is this is Mike Tomlin's team from top to bottom. He is the director of football operations. He is everything when it comes to Steelers football. And so when this team fails miserably, he's got to take some of that blame, a good portion of it. Not all of it, but it falls at Mike Tomlin's feet. So let's start with this as we start getting a few of you folks rolling in here, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube or on our X page. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is Pittsburgh Sports Tonight. I'm John Phillips. We do this show 2 nights a week, Monday and Tuesday. Heading into 2026, we're going to increase some of the programming. We'll talk more about that in the new year. But I do want to start with Aaron Rodgers. because, again, he did not look good yesterday. And again, look, when you take away the guy's number one target, clearly the best receiver that they have, right? And I'm not talking about tight ends here, and we'll talk about Pat Freiermuth here in a little bit. But the fact of the matter is that, DK Metcalf hurt this team tremendously 8 days ago when he got very selfish and got involved with a fan. Okay. And we've all talked about this ad nauseum, who's at fault, who's not at fault, the league, DK himself, anybody, security at the venue itself, the fan being a deranged lunatic who's had a vendetta, I guess, for Metcalf and went after him last year. And apparently Jay Glazer said there was a report that he got from the NFL and there was all kinds of bad words in there. And, all that alluding stuff is, one thing, but, the simple truth of the matter is that Aaron Rodgers was not very good yesterday. Now, he did not have a ton of time to throw, and I'm not trying to make excuses up for the guy. Okay, at 42 years of age and in his 20th season, he's got to be better in scenarios of this nature. And the Steelers just were not. And we can get into a little of the fact that there was that one particular play where on the 4th down and 1 inside the 30 of the Cleveland Browns, he does not check down. He had Freiermuth wide open over the middle of the field. He decides to go with a go route to the corner that was incomplete. And then a turnover on downs. They just decided not to kick the field goal there. And then, obviously some of the choices with MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling there on that last drive, they used Pat Freiermuth to get the ball downfield. And then all of a sudden, when they get 1st and goal or 2nd and goal, they go to he goes to MVS 3 times. And, the last play is a prime example of the things that I've talked about when it comes to officiating in this league. Roger Goodell, I see people talking about, the league is fixed. This is fixed. Everything's fixed. It's not fixed, folks. Okay. Anybody who says that is low IQ or just doesn't understand sports. Okay. The NFL is not a fixed or rigged product. There's too much money involved for it to be a rigged product. Okay, what you have is a league that does not value having full-time officials. Okay. Hello, Monica. Thanks for checking in. You don't have full-time officials because you don't invest in full-time officials. You therefore have guys that work with crews that have a perception of what should be a penalty and what is not a penalty at times. Okay. And so, let's just talk about the 4th down pass to MVS in the corner of the end zone. It was clearly defensive pass interference. You run that at regular speed and at slow motion, it's a DPI all the time. But the official who was in the back corner of the end zone watching that play decided to not throw a flag. The defensive back never turned around and looked at the football. He clearly had both of his hands up, interfering with the arms of MVS. Now, the ball was a little high, but the fact of the matter is that the contact itself should have drawn a flag, and it did not. You got some people on social media saying, well, we always complain about the officials making it the ref show. You either call it by the letter of the law every single time or you don't. And that's where having full-time officials that are on the same page and understand that the rules are set. And if this happens, whether it's in the first quarter, second quarter, or in the last few seconds of a game, if that's what you see, you throw a flag. Because the league does not value having to invest in full-time officials. Well, what are they going to do when the season's over? Training, right? working with the official, working with the league on what the coaches are talking about regarding, changing rules, things of that nature, putting on clinics, right? You'll figure some things out. You're a multi-billion dollar organization. You'll figure out what you're going to do with your officials in the off season. Have them work with the UFL, for crying out loud. Have them work with, other officials in these developmental leagues, if you will, because you're taking players from that league as it is. You have a working relationship with them. There are things you can do with the officials, reduce their salary some during the off season at a certain point. Figure it out. Smart enough people can sit down and figure it out that are making probably more money than they should. But you hire full-time officials, and that problem goes away because now you've got officials that are on the same page, that do this for a living, it's not a part-time job, right? And so therefore the product is improved. You've got better officiating. They understand what a catch is. Oh, the rule states, and then everybody goes by the letter of the rule. And you do that throughout the course of a 60-minute game and into overtime. It was a blatant DPI. It should have been called, but it was not. And I think there might have been like 8 seconds, 7 seconds on the clock at that point in time. So that's one example, and that's a primary example of what I would say is laziness on people's parts to continue a conspiracy theory out there regarding the NFL and being a rigged product. Of course, the league wanted to see the Steelers and the Ravens playing for it, all the marbles on Sunday night. It's for the division championship. It's for winner takes all. The stakes are extremely high, and I know the West Coast people are complaining about Seattle and San Francisco being moved to Saturday night primetime. Well, that's a reward for I believe that game's going to be on NBC or on Fox. Look, the networks are always battling for marquee matchups, right? When they put the flex schedule in a few years ago, the TV networks had right of first refusals, but only so many of them because the league wanted to have the best matchups available for Sunday night and prime time. And so they have to work with their TV partners. And the trade-off was, hey, we're going to move this game to Saturday night. It'll draw massive ratings. I don't know, the West Coast people can complain all they want. It's going to draw a huge number. I can guarantee you that there'll be 20, 25 million people watching that game Saturday night. It's going to be a dynamite game. San Francisco and Seattle for all the marbles in the NFC West. Just it's going to be, it'll be fantastic. It really will be. I'm excited to be able to watch that game Saturday night. But the league definitely wanted it, but this is not scripted in any sort of way. And I just mute people, on social media that say these sorts of things because it's a dud, right? It generates clicks and it generates, people talking. And I get why people do it. They do it for engagement because they make a living online. But the league is not fixed. It is definitely, and again, if that were the case, why aren't the Giants and the Jets 17-0 every single year? They're in the, why isn't the LA Chargers and the Rams 17-0 every single year? Why aren't the Cowboys 17-0 every single year? Why aren't the Steelers 17-0 every single year? Right? These are the most popular teams in the National Football League, the biggest cities in the National Football League. If the league was fixed, they would be at the top of it every single year. Right? Why do you think people hate the NBA and the Lakers so much? Because the Lakers have always been favored. The league has favored them, right? Boston to some degree, but the Lakers definitely in the NBA. All right, Pittsburgh Sports Tonight continues. I'm John Phillips. We're going to continue to talk Steelers. If you want to leave a comment, like Monica and some of the other people have, you're welcome to do so. We'll happily take some questions if you have any. But let's continue to just kind of talk about yesterday's game a little bit further. And again, Mike Tomlin deserves, and his coaching staff, right? The coordinators as well. Was not Art Smith's best game. But again, when you have a talent like DK Metcalf taken away because he made a poor choice, right, 8 days ago in a game at Detroit, touching a fan, he puts his team in jeopardy. right? He puts his team in jeopardy. If they have DK Metcalf, this is a completely different scenario. I'm almost certain of it. I'm almost certain of it, right? Because it just is. When you take away somebody of that nature from a team that's, that is already hurting in that position, in that category at wide receiver, like the Steelers are, when you take a DK Metcalf away, it completely changes things. Another popular conspiracy that I saw online yesterday, late last night, and then again this morning, and at times was, oh, well, the Steelers game planned to stop Myles Garrett, and that impacted their offense. Well, yeah, duh. They didn't have DK Metcalf, which means they had to chip Myles Garrett. They had to double team him, and they had to play away from him. And they did a lot of that yesterday. They did. They focused on Myles Garrett. Yeah, if you don't, he's going to have a half a dozen sacks and maybe break our 42-year-old quarterback in half. So, that's something that I think is worthy to be said in the context of all of this. Of course, you're going to game plan for Myles Garrett. What are you even talking about? Of course, you're going to game plan for him. You have to neutralize him in some capacity, but there are sacrifices given the fact, especially now, that you lose your top wide receiver. Now, could they have schemed it better? Could they have done some things differently? Maybe. But I'd like to think that they probably thought of that. And this was their best scenario in terms of how they're going to play against Garrett and how they're going to run their offense. Rodgers didn't have a whole lot of time to throw yesterday. There were a couple of series late in that game where he had a couple seconds tops, or he was taking the first option, and he wasn't even giving himself a chance to check down to 2 or 3 people. And before you know it, he's throwing, bad passes, incomplete passes, and they're just turning the ball over. The Steelers yesterday, I think they were combined 3 for 16 on 3rd and 4th down. 3 for 16 on 3rd and 4th down. Terrible afternoon for them offensively. They were just really, really bad. And I want to turn that and mute that a little bit. Sorry about that, folks. This whole idea that again, that what they were doing yesterday was could have been changed in some capacity that would have benefited them in a greater way. I just don't see it, given the fact that your second best, maybe second or third best offensive weapon, by far your best wide receiver, has been neutralized. Aaron Rodgers, tough day yesterday, 21 of 39 for 168 yards. He took 2 sacks. It was. I keep forgetting that every time I use this laptop that the volume is going to come through at times. But I'm looking for some specific team stats. Here we go. I'm going to probably have to mute this one more time. Jeez, I'll tell you. Sorry about that, folks. I wanted to pull down the third down efficiency. 3 of 15 on third downs and 0 of 3 on fourth down. So the Steelers are combined 3 for 18 in that scenario. Just detrimental to their cause yesterday, and a big reason why they were losers by a score of 13-6. Let's continue to talk a little bit more about some of this stuff. Kyle Duggar, when I talked about the Steel City short that I put together on our various social media channels, I talked a little bit about Kyle Duggar yesterday. And that touchdown pass that Shedeur Sanders threw. He throws a moon ball, and we'll get to Shedeur Sanders in a moment. The people that are riding that guy's jock make me laugh. They really want him to be a superstar so bad. They want him to be a superstar so bad. It's crazy. Kyle Duggar yesterday, I don't know what he was doing on that touchdown pass. Embarrassing. He literally olayed himself. You know how like the matadors get out of the way of the bulls? If you go back and watch that play, he literally ran around that wide receiver when he could have made a play on that ball, but he didn't. And so, when you go back and you talk about, well, this is on Tomlin, this is on Tomlin, this is on the coaching, it is on the players as well. There's plenty of, at this stage, in a scenario like this, there's plenty of blame to go around. And I did say that today, that, look, not everything is Tomlin's fault. As he said in his post-game show, or in his post-game presser, Tomlin said, hey, Aaron Rodgers had several options, especially in that last drive and in other scenarios, the 4th and 1 at the Cleveland 25. He could have easily have chosen to check away from MVS in the waiting seconds. He chose not to. He went to his guy 3 times in a row. The players have to take some of the blame. But the preparation clearly wasn't there. They just were not in sync at all yesterday by any accounts that I can see. And again, I watched a portion of the first quarter. I just, want to be transparent. It was not a good effort by any stretch of the imagination yesterday. All right, this is Pittsburgh Sports Tonight. I'm John Phillips. Thank you for joining us. We will have a live show again tomorrow. It might be a 30-minute show. We'll see. We're gonna continue to try to keep you live and local. Obviously, Pittsburgh Sports Tonight continues on here. I do want to mention that on Sunday, our pregame coverage of the Steelers and Ravens begins at 3 p.m. live from the North Park Lounge, which is where we broadcast all of our shows from. North Park Lounge, Richland, Hilltop Event Center. You'll be able to check us out there. Throw up the logos there for everybody. Absolutely. We're going to be doing that on Sunday, 3 o'clock start time. We're going to bring you 5 hours of pregame coverage, working on all kinds of guests for the show this week. We want to have a big, big show. We had by far, I think, our best, most interactive pregame show this past Sunday. We will be starting at 3 p.m. on Sunday, live from NPL Richland. If you're in the area, please come on up Route 8, hop up on the hill, 16,000 square feet facility, North Park Lounge, Richland Hilltop Event Center. Always room, great specials, great food, wonderful atmosphere. They've had it all decorated for the holidays. I would imagine they'll probably be taking that stuff down this week, but it's a great location to watch a game. Tons of televisions, lots of flat screens, lots of projection TVs, good atmosphere, and we're there. So you're welcome to come and check that out. This Sunday, live on X, Facebook, and YouTube. It is Pittsburgh Sports Tonight. And I would be remiss if I did not mention, you can follow us on social media. Helps out the channel if you can go check us out, especially on YouTube, at Steel City Sunday. If you're following us on X or Facebook, hey, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming on board and watching us this evening. It is a pleasure to be able to talk a little sports with you folks wherever you might be. But yes, on all the social media sites at Steel City Sunday. And of course, portions of today's show are brought to us by Arch Masonry and Restoration. They are hiring bricklayers, block layers. They are hiring concrete finishers. I'm actually putting a couple people like that to work starting next week, a couple masons, concrete finisher. If you're in the building trades, if you know somebody who's not working and they're looking for work, Arch is working through the wintertime. They work year round. They do quality work, their craftsmanship. They have programs where they can teach you a career. Maybe you know somebody that wants to get into a construction trade but isn't sure where to go. Call Arch Masonry, 412-564-5733, or visit archmasonryinc.com to learn more. All right, continuing on with the Steelers diatribe. I think the best scenario out of all of this, right? And I said in the pregame show yesterday, look, I want to believe that this team is different and that they're going to be able to go in and win. And I felt that they could. But I did say straight up that, these are the scenarios where Mike Tomlin teams fail. And sure enough, they came right out the gate. And I know that Cleveland won the toss and they elected to receive, and they put points on the board right away. And, that was definitely tough. But once again, the end result is very typical of Mike Tomlin. Well, how do you feel about Sunday? Early on, I actually feel pretty good. I feel pretty good because Mike Tomlin and the Steelers are 3-point underdogs at home to Baltimore. And this is very, very good for the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, because as much as Tomlin has failed in recent years in these scenarios where he is a decisive favorite, and especially on the road against a terrible football team, and the team loses and the Steelers lose outright, Mike Tomlin teams do very well when the pressure's off of them. When they are the underdog, whether it's on the road or at home, they tend to step up their play. And here is the scenario that I think plays out on Sunday. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about LJ8 versus Snoop Huntley starting at quarterback for the Ravens here in just a few minutes. But the thing is this is a great scenario for Tomlin and his team, because now they can be loose. We're the underdog. Nobody expects us to win. I think this team will have a very good – I think they had a horrible practice last week because of what happened with DK Metcalf. You couple that with Christmas and family and those sorts of things, distractions of this nature at this time of year. They're human beings, right? They're human beings. So they're going to have that element that's going to play an impact in their preparation. But in this scenario where they are an underdog at home against their rival, it's just like 4 weeks ago. They were reeling 4 weeks ago, and they went into Baltimore and they punched the Ravens right in the teeth. I mean, they grabbed them by the jugular and just shook them around. And they owned that game. And they did get down early 3-0, but they responded quickly. They got that touchdown, right? Aaron Rodgers walked it in. Unk got a touchdown. Hadn't done that in a while. And he gave him the little discount double check at the end. And the Steelers never lost the lead from that point on. They controlled the game from that point on and won. And so I think this is a great spot for the Steelers right now for them to be in. Right? Obviously, you wanted them to win yesterday, right? Take a week off. But they're not going to get that. I think they'll be focused this week. Clearly, they laid a dud. They laid an egg. It was bad. And now we're back to square one here. All the feelsy goods feelings from the last 3 weeks are gone. And they had some very good wins in there. Right? They beat the Ravens on the road. They came home on a Monday night and they smacked around the Miami Dolphins, who had won 4 straight and 5 of 6, including beating the Buffalo Bills convincingly, I might add. And then they go to Detroit and win. Everything was great. No, you guys don't know what you're talking about with Tomlin and blah, blah, blah. This is the yo-yo effect that I talked about. I don't know if you follow my X page or not. If you're on X, it's Steel City Sunday. I got up at 4 a.m. last night, couldn't sleep, and I put a little thread together on the history of Mike Tomlin here in Pittsburgh, and I think it was a fair and concise assessment of who he is and what his tenure here has been like. It's hard. It is hard to witness at times, but I think Mike Tomlin is in the best spot he could possibly be in right now, and that is an underdog at home in the final game of the regular season in prime time. He excels in these scenarios. He really does. His teams rise to the occasion for himself. They rise to the occasion. We'll see if they can rise to the occasion on Sunday night when they take on the Baltimore Ravens. All right. So let's talk about the Ravens a little bit. Of course, Saturday night, they go into Lambeau Field. The Green Bay Packers had wrapped up a playoff spot. Jordan Love was banged up. They had about 10 starters that were all banged up. So they were not in particularly great shape. And King Henry just did what he does best, and that's run the football. Over 200 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. He becomes the only running back in the history of the NFL to run for 4 touchdowns with 2 different teams. So clearly this team, which did not have Lamar Jackson, and they had Tyrod Taylor running the show for them, or Tyrod Huntley, excuse me. They had Snoop Huntley running the show for them. They clearly demonstrated that when their game plan is working and their team is cohesive, they're pretty formidable, and they're going to bring that running attack with them on Sunday. I don't know which quarterback I prefer to face. I'm not sure. I don't know which way the Ravens are going to go in terms of who they're going to start. They're probably, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I would think John Harbaugh would like to have Lamar Jackson at his disposal. He's only won 3 MVPs since he's been in the league. But if he's not healthy enough, Huntley does give them a veteran presence. He's won games of this nature. I'm not sure who I want to face. I know this. We're going to be tested. They're going to run the football against us, and they're going to pound the rock as much as they can. I don't think they're going to try to throw the football a whole lot. I mean, I believe they will throw the football in some capacity, but I think if the Baltimore Ravens expect to win this game, and if they are game planning like every team does for their opponent, their game plan is to try to run the football 30, 35 times. That's how the Baltimore Ravens control the clock and win games, by eating up yardage on the ground. And Henry, for being over 30 years of age, the guy is hard to bring down. He still has that it factor that running backs tend to lose when they get to that stage in their careers. Henry he's a Hall of Fame type running back right now. When it's all said and done, he's probably going to end up in the top 7, 8 of rushing yards. He might, he could end up maybe top 5, possibly. Touchdowns, in terms of touchdowns scored, he's going to have, I don't know where he stands all time right now, but he'll probably be in the top 10 of that for running backs. Let's see if we can find out here. I think he is at, let's see, all time career stats for Derrick Henry, 87 touchdowns. He's got 87 career touchdowns. So, no, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. He's got a lot of touchdowns. He's going to end up with even more. I can see Henry running for another 2 or 3 more years and being highly productive as an individual in this league. And barring an injury, Derrick Henry is a formidable athlete to contend with, and the Steelers are going to have to contend with him come Sunday. I don't know how this is all going to play out. We will talk more about it tomorrow, obviously. But I don't care which quarterback they play. I don't care which one they play. I just want to see them win on Sunday. Okay, let's move to our next topic here, and let's talk about Shedeur Sanders. So it amuses me that people on social media, especially those that are in the camp of Shedeur and his father, they want this young man to be the next Warren Moon. And they certainly talk about him like he is. They want him to be something that he's not right now. He's nowhere close to being a competent and highly productive NFL quarterback. He's miles and miles and miles away from that. He has had 6 starts now for the Cleveland Browns. 6 starts for Shedeur Sanders, and not great. Nothing to write home about. I know when they won that game against the Las Vegas Raiders that everybody wanted to anoint him as the second coming. And again yesterday, he beat Aaron Rodgers. He was better than him. Yeah, he was, I guess. He threw for most of his yards in the first quarter. He had 2 interceptions. He throws a moon ball that's just not very pretty. Quite frankly, the touchdown pass that he threw should have been intercepted by Kyle Duggar had he made a better read on the play. Shedeur Sanders has, I think, a whopping 16 passes of 10 yards or more in 190 attempts. The kid's he was drafted properly in the 5th round. There's a reason why Shedeur Sanders, and it's not racism. I love people that say that. Look, the kid I can't believe they drafted all these other quarterbacks ahead of him. As I've stated, this league, that position, by far the hardest one to find somebody that can develop into an elite quarterback. There are only so many of them. You have a handful of elite quarterbacks, right? You have your Patrick Mahomes, your Lamar Jacksons, you have your Josh Allens, okay? You have your Matt Staffords. Matt Stafford is an elite quarterback. Then you have a level just below them, right? You got Brock Purdy's, you got Jared Goff's, you've got Justin Herbert's, you've got, younger quarterbacks that are starting to come up and develop. Drake May, Caleb Williams is having a very good second year, right? There are others. There's a few others in there. Talk about, Cam Ward's development this year all you want, but to find the elite quarterbacks is it's very much a crapshoot. Take a look at how many quarterbacks have been taken in the first round since 2020, and how many are regular starters in the league. It's only a handful. It's only a handful. And that's because the position is ultra demanding. We're getting some more questions in here from our chat. Bruce Harper checking in. Do you feel the Steelers are choking, or do you feel they will win this weekend? Okay. I think Tomlin's a Hall of Fame coach, but maybe his time has come and gone. What do you think, Bruce? I think I've been very public about it. Thank you for chiming in. Do I think the Steelers are choking, or do I feel like they'll win this weekend? I feel like right now they're in a good position because they are a 3-point underdog. Do I think Tomlin is a Hall of Fame coach? If Mike Tomlin were to retire tomorrow and never return to coaching, in 5 years' time, there would be a bust of him in Canton, Ohio. He would be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Top 10 all-time wins, a Super Bowl victory, never had a losing season. There you go. I absolutely. But is his time up? Yes. We all have a shelf life. Coaches in the National Football League in professional sports have a shelf life. And I've said this. I said this in my X post from early this morning, which is pinned right now. If you go to my X page at Steel City Sunday, you can read it. There's I just went on a rant, and I think it was 25 or close to 30, tweets within that thread. It's like being a starving human being, and the only thing you have on the shelf to eat is a World War II ration. And when you open it up and you eat it, it makes you sick. You get taken to the hospital. They pump your stomach. They give you an expensive bill, and they send you back home. You're hungry. You're tired. You're broke. And you're staring at the same rations that you had no other choice to eat earlier. That's what I equate Mike Tomlin to, a World War II ration. It's like consuming something that you just don't want to eat, but you got no choice, and it makes you sick. Tomlin has run his course. I didn't have time to research it today, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to tell you right now, Bruce, The thing that I'll have for tomorrow's show is going to blow your mind. And it's going to deal with coaches in the NFL that won Super Bowls and how long it took them to be relieved of their duties and how many seasons they didn't win a playoff game. I've started it. I'm early in it, but I'm going to put this together. It's going to blow your mind because Mike Tomlin is a favored human being right now. He is tremendously protected by the Rooneys, and I've said this before. Thank you for the comments. Well said from Bruce. Even coaches like Pete Carroll have a shelf life. His is most definitely expired here, Bruce, and that's okay. This is not to denigrate Tomlin. I'm not a racist. I've been called a racist I don't know how many times over the last decade. I've been trumpeting this sound since 2018 in the divisional loss to Jacksonville when I was writing for Behind the Steel Curtain. I had left 93.7 The Fan at that point in time. I'm not a racist. I promise you, right? As much as Tomlin hates the media, right, I respect Mike Tomlin. He's won games, but he has clearly passed his time here. He's clearly passed his time here. And it happens. It happens to every coach. It happened to Don Shula. It happened to Chuck Noll, right? And you may not know this, but the simple fact of the matter is that Dan Rooney went to Chuck Noll in 1991, and he said to him, your time is up. Your time is done. 21 years. It's time to hang it up. And Chuck had to retire because Dan Rooney recognized that it was time for him to move on with his life's work, which is what he said in his post-game presser. I was in college at the time, and I was working my way through, learning a radio career, and I was doing a little bit of coverage at the time. I'll never forget that, right? And again, with Bill Cowher. Why did Bill Cowher step down? Because he wanted more money, and the Rooneys didn't want to pay him, so he retired. That's the truth behind it. Steelers Freak 1964. Good to see you again, sir. Johnny with the dog was right when he said, don't bet on the Steelers. Yeah, I mean, yesterday, definitely not the scenario to bet on the Steelers. This week, we'll see how the week plays out. We'll see how things come to Sunday. I want to see how they get through the week. I want to see what's being said. I want to see where the line movement is going, especially on Sunday. I want to see where the West Coast money's coming at. I think early indications right now is I like where the Steelers are at right now in terms of a win on Sunday. I'm sorry if anything I said made you feel like, oh, no, Bruce, I'm not saying that at all. Not at all. I've been called that time and again over the years because I say it's time for Tomlin to go. Tomlin, it's not that he's not good at his job. Okay, and I don't think that you think I'm a racist. I mean, I've dealt with this in the last year or so, when you confront people about Tomlin, because all they say is, well, people want to get rid of him because he's black. All right. That's not the case. The case is his time has just come and gone. His expiration date passed a few years ago. Right. But when you have a job for life, and Tomlin has this job until he wants to walk away. And I want to talk about the Adam Schefter story today. That broke late this afternoon. There was a tweet from Adam Schefter via Pat McAfee's show. The word is that if the Steelers lose on Sunday, Mike Tomlin could possibly decide to step away, do television, or perhaps try to find a team to coach next year. And this is the scenario I talked about 4 weeks ago. Right when they were losing, they were in the midst of that that skid when they got embarrassed. Thank you for your comments, Bruce. When they got embarrassed by the Bills at home, I just said here, the chance of fire Tomlin in the stands and boo and renegade. And, I wrote an article that I put on Facebook, I put it on our Facebook page and a bunch of others, and people were DMing me, oh, you're racist, blah, blah, blah. And you don't like him because he's, a man of color and this and that. That's not the case. Okay. Like Tomlin has just run his course here. It happens. it happens to the best people. I mean, when a franchise in this league decides they're not going to extend a contract to a head coach that won them 6 Super Bowls, maybe it's time for Mike Tomlin to step away from this franchise. Maybe what Mike Tomlin needs is a new pasture to work in. Maybe he needs a team like the New York Giants that have a young quarterback that can be worked with and maybe developed. I don't think Tomlin's a great developer of quarterbacks, but getting the right assistants around you. Look what happened in Houston this year. Dan Campbell. Fucking Lions are not making the playoffs because he lost his coordinators. Maybe Tomlin just needs a new change of scenery and some fresh minds with an organization that'll bring him in and say, okay, we're going to let you do mostly everything, but here's what we want to see you do, and we're going to work with you towards this. Because you're not going to give up draft picks to bring Mike Tomlin in if that's the case. If the Steelers lose Sunday and the Schefter story is real, okay, then it accelerates potentially based on how Tomlin feels. Because I still think Tomlin would love to be the all-time winner, winningest coach in Steelers history. He's only a couple away from Noel's regular season mark. He just needs a few more wins. I'm sure he would love to have that feather in his cap. But maybe for Mike Tomlin, he's had enough. It's possible. I feel maybe Tomlin should try to coach at Penn State. Well, they just hired a head coach, and they're good in that department. Steelers freak. The record-breaking bad playoff results over the past decade make the issue about performance not pigment. I don't know if that was a misspell or not. They've had terrible results, and that's part of what my ex rant was about, to be quite honest with you. I in detail went over his 19 seasons here. The 18 prior that are complete have just 4 seasons where he's won a playoff game. 4. And as I mentioned on the pregame show yesterday, the longest drought that Bill Cowher had, and if you remember Cowher's tenure here, and I covered a portion of that. I covered a good portion of it, actually. Because I used to work on Ardmore Boulevard at their radio flagship. It was 3 seasons. Cowher never went more than 3 seasons between playoff wins. Chuck Noll never went more than 4. And now you've got Mike Tomlin working on an 8th season. And mind you, he had a 5-year stretch in between wins as well. So he's only had playoff wins in 4 seasons, folks. Only had playoff wins in 4 seasons, ladies and gentlemen. You're starting to get the picture here, right? You see what we're talking about? We're talking about a team that just does not do well under him. They historically have not. How do you only record playoff wins in 4 of your 18 seasons and continue to keep your job after not winning a playoff game in 8? I've gone over that ad nauseum as to why as well. Why do you feel the best NFL play-by-play on network television today is? Who do you feel is the top color commentator? Bruce, thank you very much for the question. I'm partial to still Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. I know Tony Romo has been taking a lot of heat lately. Tom Brady's growing on me. I like Tom. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. I've said it for a long, long time and was hated for it as well, But Brady he's pretty good too. Ian Eagle's pretty good as well. I like listening to him. He calls a pretty good game. We appreciate all your comments in our chat section here. It is Pittsburgh Sports Tonight. A couple more minutes, and then we're going to wrap up here. I'm going to call it an evening here. We will be back on the air tomorrow. We hope you join us, whether it's on X, Facebook, or YouTube. We do appreciate your comments. There are fans out there like me who supported Tomlin for a while, but have soured. Yeah, look, again, you souring over Tomlin is understandable, right? It's you want to see wins. You want to see wins. We're used to stacking Lombardis here. And when you go 8 seasons without a playoff victory, nobody survives that. Why has Mike Tomlin survived that? I've said why, which is why I bring up the thing regarding racism, because he is a Rooney Rule hire. He's a Rooney Rule hire. He was hired by Dan Rooney. Even though Art was the president of the organization, Dan picked him to take over a roster that was filled with talent from a Super Bowl win just 2 seasons prior. He had only spent 1 year as a defensive coordinator in Minnesota. He didn't do anything special up there in that one season. But according to, the Steeler brass, their brain trust, when they interviewed him, they blew him away. Mike Oste brought it up yesterday. That was the comment. Everybody thought Russ Grin was going to get the job. Somebody from the Post-Gazette actually reported it. I think it was, I don't want to say who. Somebody reported that the job was his. But it turned out that wasn't the case. The simple truth is that he's a Rooney Rule hire, and Art Rooney II is never going to fire him. He's never going to tarnish his father's name. Okay, and the Rooney Rule's a very good rule. It was put in place for a good reason. They wanted to give minorities more opportunities at interviews and potential coaching and general manager positions, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's nothing wrong with pointing it out either. That doesn't make you a bigot or a racist. It's just what it is. Bruce says he likes Brady too, but he's scared to say the truth sometimes. He feels like he's scared to say the truth sometimes. I don't think so. I think Tom's. Look, he's not so fresh off of the end of his career where he doesn't feel like he wants to hurt people's. You know what I mean? Like these ex-players, I think, do a pretty good job of being objective and being critical, but not derogatory, right? And not defaming the players that are out there on the field, because they themselves made a living playing football between the hashes. But I think he does a pretty good job. I think he's getting better. I think he'll get better over time for sure. All right, couple quick comments on Pitt and Penn State. By the way, Chris Boswell, what's going on with him? He's missing field goals now. More than he has in recent memory. I don't want to see that trend continue, but everybody eventually slips. If they're, exceptionally great, they cannot necessarily be great forever. Pitt losing to ECU in the Military Bowl, embarrassing to say the very least. ECU, it's never a good scenario for a P4 team to face a G5 team in minor bowl games. I actually liked ECU to win that game outright on Saturday, and sure enough, they did. Terry Smith leading Penn State to a Pinstripe Bowl victory over Clemson. I loved Penn State on the money line on Saturday as well. I thought that was going to be an ugly football game. The under came in. Terry Smith gets his final victory in the interim phase of his tenure at Penn State. I thought the Nittany Lions should have hired him as their head coach, but they did not. They went in another direction, and that's Pitt and Penn State football in a nutshell. Every opportunity for a bowl like the Pinstripe to put those two together, but they do not. And we'll never know the true story, whether it was Pitt or Penn State that didn't want to play one another. The Pinstripe people came out and said, well, Clemson's going to provide a better TV matchup. That's all bupkis. It's all absolute bupkis. I feel the Rooney Rule was good at the time. Otherwise, minority candidates, black candidates would not have been considered. Absolutely. Absolutely. The rule was put in place for a good reason. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that, Mike Tomlin didn't jump off the page at anybody after one season as defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings. But apparently he was such an amazing interviewer that the Steelers had to hire him. They handed him a Super Bowl roster filled with people from the 2005 championship team. And to his credit, he got them to 2 Super Bowls in 4 seasons, and he won one. It was maybe a Rashard Mendenhall fumble away from possibly winning a second. But we've seen Tomlin now since then. And I was at the Fan at that time in 2010. Covered that team. Went into that locker room. He put a roster together eventually on his own, of his own talent and accord. And the best team he ever had laid an egg in the divisional in 2018 against Jacksonville at home. And that was partly bad luck because of the Jesse James touchdown reversal against New England late in December at Acrisure, which was then Heinz Field. That whole fiasco. Them's is the break sometimes. All right, remember, folks, one last plug before I get out of here, and I want to thank the handful of you that were checking us out this evening. Don't forget, if you're not subscribed, especially on YouTube, please go support the channel. X as well. Go check us out on Facebook. I try to put content up every single day. We have daily programs now, 4 nights a week, but please check us out on all of our social media sites. We would greatly appreciate that. I will be back in here tomorrow at 7 o'clock. I may have a guest at 7:30. Not sure just yet. It is the holiday season. We're heading into the new year. Happy New Year to everybody. Hope you had a great Christmas. Hope you got lots of gifts from Santa Claus. We appreciate you. You sticking around and giving us comments in the chat is like a Christmas gift to this tired old man. Not so old, but I'm happy to be able to have this channel now and do these sorts of things, even if it's just for an hour a night, even if it's just for a handful of you. We'll grow the channel up. I'm pretty certain by this time next year, we'll have a nice group of followers and people that want to tune in and comment and talk about sports, as the seasons change and as we go through the course of time. I believe that this channel will certainly grow. Last comment before we wrap up the show. 2 things can be true. Tomlin's ability to lead today's players, that's something that must be acknowledged. Nolan Cowher would have trouble now. The NFL has possibly left Tomlin behind. Well, I don't know about Bill Cowher. Chuck Noll for sure. But Bill Cowher, I think he might still be able to. If Pete Carroll can communicate and connect with players today, which he is doing, even though it's the Las Vegas Raiders, I think Bill Cowher could possibly still do that. That's the only thing that I might disagree with you on that one, Steelers Freak. I appreciate you coming on board. All right, with that being said, we're going to put a wrap on the show this evening. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Talk a little bit more about maybe possibility of the Adam Schefter story. We'll maybe throw in a little bit more Penguins talk. I don't think the Pirates have done much to really generate any sort of conversation, so it'll be mostly football. We'll probably mix in some NFL as well. Until tomorrow, Pittsburgh, thank you so much for joining us. My name is John Phillips. This has been Pittsburgh Sports Tonight, right here on our X, YouTube, and Facebook page, and we want to thank our good friends at It's a Wrap Sports for continuing to help us produce the show. Good night.